and welcome back to Two Chicks and a Horror Flick. I'm Tawny Ray.
And I'm Felicia Connor.
And today we are joined by the wonderful, the lovely, the greatest Michael from the We Love Horror podcast. Welcome, Woo! Michael.
Hi, guys. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm really good. I'm so excited to be back on here with you guys. I feel like I always count down the days until I can record with you guys again. And I'm finally back on with you guys, and I'm so excited.
Yes, we are too.
Yes, it'll be super fun. I should have said again, because obviously this is the second time that you're on as a guest. And today we're going to talk about I Know What You Did Last Summer. So this was your pick, Michael. Do you want to talk a little bit about why you chose this movie?
Yeah. So I love this film so much. I feel like there's such a nostalgic tie with this film because this was one of the very first like slasher films I saw when I was at a young age. And I remember like I was already in my obsession with Sarah Michelle Gellar phase. So this was another movie with Sarah Michelle Gellar that I was like, oh, she's fantastic. And it's just a really good summery slasher film. Like anytime I think about slasher films, this is like the film that I think about in summer. It like encapsulates that perfectly. And do I think it's the best slasher movie ever made? No, but I still think it's a classic. I still think it's a great film. And yeah, I don't know. I just really wanted to talk about this film with somebody, especially with it being July. And I know the 4th of July is gone and past at this point, but it takes place in July. So I was like, oh, that'd be perfect. So
yeah.
Hey, Michael, thank you so much for giving us a theme for this episode.
Of course.
It's so relevant. It was a really good pick. Even though it's not the 4th, it still is July. So that's great.
There we go. And the fact that you hadn't even seen it, Felicia, or Tawny, I was like, I cannot believe Tawny's never seen this.
Yeah, I think I had only seen the beginning. Felicia and I talked about at the end of the last episode, we both were like, we remember a scene of a bunch of kids yelling at each other on the road on like a cliff face. Well, that's the first, like 20 minutes of this movie.
Yeah.
So I think I saw that part and haven't ever ended up watching the rest. So, and had you seen it, Felicia?
Yeah, I saw it. So This was made in 97. That was 2 years after I graduated high school. And the cool thing about it, though, watching it a second time, is I did see it back then and I didn't remember anything. I remembered bits and pieces. I remember every single person that was in it, like the cast. And I remember that they had killed someone. But I didn't remember all the other pieces. So that was nice because I was experiencing it again.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it was like you were seeing it for the first time almost.
Yeah, almost.
Most
yeah,
of
it. Because there wasn't like, oh, I remember this. I didn't have those like moments. So yeah.
Okay. Well, let's shoot the shit a little bit and we'll start with what we're drinking. So Michael, as our guest, do you want to go first? What are you drinking?
I am just drinking a good old Sunkist today.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
That's also very relevant.
It is, right? going once again with the summer theme, just a very summery drink. So, and I'm straying away from my normal Mountain Dew. So, cause I don't have any right now. So I'm like, you know what? Sunkist it is. So.
All right.
Yeah.
Felicia, what are you drinking?
A big old jug of water. Being hydrated. Summer theme. Heat.
Yes.
Hydration.
Hot. Water. Sweating. Hydration.
Yes.
Me too. I've also got water because we're recording this early. And I was like, can't justify having an alcoholic beverage before 12. So
hey, you know what, Tawny? It's 5 o'clock somewhere, so if you wanted to have one, you could have had one.
I mean,
no judgment here.
Bellinis, Bloody Marys,
mimosas.
But
I didn't have stuff to make mimosas, or else I probably would have.
We should do a morning show and have morning drinks. I'm game for that.
There we go.
We should, we should do that one.
Okay, put that on the back burner.
Yeah,
in the back of our minds. So Michael, what is new with you? What's been going on?
I just recently moved again, not too long ago, back in June. And so I'm living in a new place and I really enjoy it. I've got some great roommates, just a great overall living situation. Other than that, just working and just podcasting. So I guess right now I could just plug my podcast in.
Yes.
Yeah, do
if
it.
that's okay.
Yeah.
I'm Michael from the We Love Horror podcast. And lately I've just been working really hard on getting like my season 2 stuff out. I just started season 2, and I thought what better way to start off season 2 with my winter and July theme, which I've been doing all month long. And I thought it would be fun because I was just like, oh, it's hot, it's summer, people are probably trying to find a way to beat the heat. So I was like, why not, do like a winter and July themed all month long, segment. So just picking winter themed horror films all month long. And then in December, I think I'm going to do summer in December, kind of like an opposite thing, just because I feel like people in December are going to pick Christmas movies, and like that's all it's going to be all month long. So I just kind of want to do something different. So that's kind of where I'm going with that. But yeah, I started a Patreon not too long ago that Tawny, you subscribe to. So thank you.
Of course.
I really appreciate it. And then merch as well. I just started selling merch. So that has been really fun.
Really, really cute designs too. I kind of forgot until you said like that not everybody might know that about your podcast. It's just like chatting like friends. So I'm glad that you plugged yourself. But yeah, if you haven't checked it out and you haven't checked out Michael's podcast, you absolutely should. Really great content. And the designs are super cute on the merch. So go check that out as well.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, that's really all I've been doing is just busy with podcast stuff. So I feel like that's all I do is just I work, come home, do podcast stuff. So can't really complain though.
Should they pop over to your Instagram to find your merch and stuff?
Yeah. So if you go to We Love Horror Podcast on Instagram, I have a link in my bio that they can find like all that stuff. So I have my link to my Patreon, link to my merch, and then link to wherever you can hear my podcast at. So
awesome.
Yeah.
And do you want to plug your other podcast?
Oh, yeah. God, I'm still so bad about getting in the habit of that. So I do have another podcast as well. I do it with my friend Josh. We all know Josh from Horror Movie Crew, and him and I do a bi-monthly podcast where we just shoot the shit about horror movies. We do a lot of like top 5 lists of like our favorite, horror films, remakes, stuff like that. So if you're looking for a podcast that is a little bit different when it comes to horror related stuff, check out Another Horror Pod that me and Josh do. And you can also find us on Instagram at Another Horror Pod. I'm pretty sure we're streaming on all platforms, so you can find us there.
Awesome. Nice. What else is new, Felicia? You got anything to report? Anything you've watched?
Oh, yeah, I've watched stuff. I didn't know if I was going to be able to share on this, so I won't share a lot of them. But okay, what was my favorite thing that I watched? Because I watched several things. I'm going to see how many times I could say watched. Hold on one sec. Okay, so you know what? because you're allowing me to, I want to holler out 2 things, okay? The first thing hollering it out. The first thing I watched that Tawny mentioned on our last show is The Great. And it is great. And it is on Hulu. And I love it. I love the characters, even the despicable ones. Phenomenal. I'm digging this show a lot.
I'm glad that you I thought you might really like it. I think you're going to really, really, really like Harlots too. So whenever you get a moment, watch that one.
The second thing I watched, which is I am just upset. Well, I love Russell Brand. I'm pretty much obsessed. He's my mentor. He doesn't know, but I love him. And he did this thing called Our Little Lives, Shakespeare and Me. And they're selling tickets. It was like $15 and it was streamed live on Live Now. And he did it live. And so it's called Our Little Lives, Shakespeare and Me. And it was fucking phenomenal. I just don't even know how to explain it. I watched it, and as I was watching it, I felt like I'm just going to say it. You guys, if you guys don't already know that I'm weird, then I don't know. You haven't heard our show. I felt like I was like honored to watch this. I cried. I laughed. What a fucking amazing human being. it was beautiful. I fucking love it. And I don't know how how it's gonna be released, because I know it was live I think on last Monday, and then I have access to it until the 23rd, and then I'm not sure what they're gonna do with it, like release it on some type of a streaming service, but I'm sure you could go check it out and see. But if they sell this is how much I loved it. If there's somehow I could buy this so that I could re-experience it again throughout my life, I will do that. So.
What was it? Like, I don't understand.
I don't even know how to explain it. That's why I'm being vague. So was
it like a talk, or was it?
It was a theater. It was in a theater, and so I absolutely cannot explain it the way he did.
Okay.
But he's talking about how words are so beautiful and have so much power. They did, and now they're just, they're wasted. And if you think of in the past, like with Shakespeare and stuff, the way things were worded, the way they just had so much power and beauty. And he also talks about, though, his typical platform of us all being one and leading with compassion. So he weaves that in. He also weaves in his life story, and he's funny as all hell. So he's also very funny. And so what he does is he's kind of talking about, just the things that he talks about. If you listen to Russell Brand, you kind of know, and his spirituality and things like that, but going through his life. And then he takes the reason it's Shakespeare, these monologues from Shakespeare, a bunch of different pieces of Shakespeare, and how they represented a piece of him growing and learning. And so then all of a sudden the lights will go dark and you don't even realize it. And he transitions into this fucking powerful monologue, and then it's over and he goes, into just talking himself. I don't know, guys. That's the best really I can cool. do. That's the best I can do.
It sounds really cool. Yeah.
Neat.
Yeah.
Okay.
I like that.
Yeah.
And my babies are back. So my daughter starts school next week, and then my oldest starts college in August. So I'm going to cry.
That's crazy.
I know. In August.
They grow up so fast.
They do. They do.
Is she going somewhere?
Everybody knows TT. She starts second grade next week.
Okay.
Yeah, she is. She's going to NAU.
Okay.
Going to college. And
is it far?
Not from me, no. No, it's only a couple hours away.
Okay.
So that's good too, because so she can come home.
Yeah.
But me and like true crime and stuff, I'm like, getting her ready to.
That's how I was with my sister. Like when she graduated like college, like I found myself being very protective of her. Like I was like, make sure if you're gonna go to this college, if you are close to home, make sure that this and this and that. And my sister was like, I'll be fine. And I'm like, yeah, but they say that and then they go missing. So.
Yeah, exactly. She's like, oh, there's this place that, see how paranoid I am? There's this place that maybe I'll get a job at because I can walk there. No, what if you work a night shift? What if you, and she's like, Mom.
You will not be walking anywhere at night, young lady.
Yes.
One other thing that I want to mention as far as what we've watched is because now Felicia and I are on a period kick. Like she's watching The Great. What did it start with? Bridgerton for me. It started with Outlander.
Outlander for me. Me and the girls watched The Beguiled last night. Yeah, we were like on period pieces.
Yeah,
nice.
We're having a moment, both of us, because now we're watching Outlander, and I am obsessed. I usually don't say that I'm obsessed, but I am obsessed. Jade is like, you need help, because I'm like pushing us to watch 2 episodes a day at least, and he's not a binger. He's like, we're gonna finish this in like 2 weeks. I'm like, yeah. Hopefully.
That's the goal.
There will always be another show to watch. I'm not worried about finishing it too quickly.
And then have you gotten to like where they have sex? Like, good sex? Oh,
yeah.
I was waiting for that. There was so much tension built up. I'm like, are they ever going to get together?
I know, it did take a while. It was slow, but that's what I like about it. Is like it's kind of a slow. I don't know. It's good. I like it.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was the one other thing.
Before we really get into it, if I can say one last thing, I just want to wish a very, very happy birthday to the love of my life, my knight in shining armor, my Outlander, Stephen Connor. So, yeah, that's it.
Happy birthday, Steve.
Happy birthday.
Yeah. Tell him we said so.
I will. I'll tell him.
Okay. And before I forget also, we need to do another Patreon shout out for Seth from Horror Movie Crew. Woo! I'm so sorry, Seth. We had forgotten because we thought we did it, but we didn't officially do it. We just gave you like an honorable mention when we talked about Jess and Josh, and my bad. So here you go. This is your Patreon shout out. You're the best. Thanks for supporting the show.
Hey.
You guys,
you know what I'm going to buy?
So great.
We literally need one of those machines that go, audience applause. Because I feel like several times, like when Michael came on and then to shout out Seth, I wanted to do it. So
yeah,
here's Seth. Yay.
I could just edit it in.
Okay.
But I'm telling you right now, I'm not gonna.
Yeah, I know. That's why I need the little machine.
Okay, gotcha.
Just prefacing to you right now, I'm not doing that.
Yeah. I could. I have the capability, but I'm not.
But I won't.
But I'm not gonna do it.
Not even for you, Seth. I'm just kidding. Yay.
Maybe for you, Seth. Maybe.
Oh, man.
Okay. Should we get into it now?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
After all of that shooting the shit. Okay, so again, we're talking about I Know What You Did Last Summer from 1997. The director is Jim Gillespie, who hasn't done anything else that I recognize. He did a movie called Joyride, which I thought I recognized.
That movie is so good.
Is it a horror movie, though?
Is it the one with Paul Walker?
I don't know. I think this is a different thing than what I was thinking it was. So, yeah, he hasn't really done anything else of note. But really, I think who we should cite here is the writer, who was Kevin Williamson.
Yes.
Who had also written Scream. Also, it looks like anything relating to Scream at all. Like they did like a Scream TV show, Scream 2, 3, 4. There's like a new Scream something happening in 2022 that he seems to be writing. So he seems to be like, even though I'm sure Jim did some stuff with the directing, it seems like most of what people talk about with this movie is the writing, which is Kevin. He also wrote The Faculty, one of my personal faves, and a shit ton of episodes of The Vampire Diaries, which was one of my guilty pleasure shows. So that was kind of surprising.
He also wrote Dawson's Creek, too.
Oh, right.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh, this all makes sense now. Okay.
And another really good show called The Following that has Kevin Bacon in it. I don't know if either one of you have seen or heard of that show. I highly recommend it. It's a very good show. It has like 3 seasons, I believe. I'm not really sure where you can find it on streaming, but yeah, it's called The Following, and he also wrote that. So very, very good.
Okay. Good to know. So then for cast, we've got Jennifer Love Hewitt as Julie James, Sarah Michelle Gellar, the Sarah Michelle Gellar.
Sarah Michelle Gellar.
who did Helen Shivers, who was Helen Shivers. Ryan Felipe played Barry Cox. Freddie Prinze Jr. played Ray Bronson. And Muse Watson played Ben Willis, the fisherman. And as far as ratings goes, IMDb gave this a 5.7 out of 10. Rotten Tomatoes gives it a 44%, and 90% of Google users like this movie, which actually is higher than Scream. I just happened to look up Scream, and at least the Google users, I think it was like 80 something, which surprised me. Mm-hmm. And then budget was $17 million, and box office was $125 million.
Damn.
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Now I've talked a lot, and if anybody wants to add anything before we go into 2 minutes with Tawny.
Well, I thought it was interesting. I remember seeing something somewhere that Kevin Williamson originally pitched the script to I Know What You Did Last Summer before Scream, and nobody wanted anything to do with it. And then as soon as the success of Scream came out, they were all over it. They wanted it they wanted him to make it so bad. Like they're like, oh yeah, let's look at this script. So I thought that was really funny how he originally pitched the script to the studio. They wanted nothing to do with it. And then as soon as the success of Scream happened, of course, then they were like, oh yeah, well, absolutely, we'd love to have it. So
yeah, a lot of people too were like, I read a lot about, I can't remember which actress, but I think it was like the actress got the script or was gonna try out for the lead or something and was like, this feels like a Scream knockoff, like a ripoff of Scream. So there was like a lot of that I was seeing, but actually this was written first, so interesting. Okay, so let's get into 2 minutes with Tawny. Quick recap of this movie. 4 friends run over a man on the road, panic, and dump his body in the water. They make a pact to never speak of the incident again. A year later, Julie gets a note saying, "I know what you did last summer." The title of the movie, of course. The kids try to figure out who might know about the murder, while people are getting picked off by an ominous figure with a hook. They find out that the man they hit was David Egan. Helen and Julie meet with his sister, Missy, who eventually reveals that David had accidentally killed his girlfriend, Susie, in a car accident. Accident. There was too many accidents there. A year prior to the incident with the kids, and later committed suicide because of his guilt. She shows Julie the note, and Julie realizes it's the same writing as the notes they have received from their stalker, and that it was actually a threat. Helen and Barry get murdered, and Julie goes to find Ray. The two end up on another man's boat, who is revealed to be Ben Willis, Susie's father. He was the one they ran over, and he survived and has been harassing them all this time. Julie finds the bodies of her friends in the boat, and Ray manages to string Ben up in some fishing equipment, severing his hand and tossing him overboard just moments after Ben told Julie to make sure someone's actually dead. So, a year later, we see that he is still stalking Julie based on a message written on a mirror saying, "I still know." Right before the last jump scare. We get a last jump scare in this movie. The end.
Nice.
Very nice.
Who wants to go first? Just overall thoughts.
We all opened our mouths. At first, I was going to say if Tawny, because I know that this has happened in the past where I hadn't seen it. If Tawny, if you wanted to, because you haven't seen it before. Okay. Or you're tired of talking, so you don't want to.
That's exactly the same thing I was going to ask, because I was like, I would love to hear it from your guys' perspective first, just because I feel like, Tawny, you've never seen it. Felicia, you said you've seen it once before you watched it again. So you guys both kind of have like really fresh perspectives on it.
Yeah. Yeah, Felicia, maybe why don't you go first, just because I did just talk a bunch. Is that cool?
Yeah, no, that's totally fine. Okay. So I liked this movie. So when you mentioned that he wrote Dawson's Creek, the reason I went, oh, it makes sense, is because it is not like stellar script and acting. I mean, I loved Sarah Michelle Gellar and Jennifer Love Hewitt, but it's not like this stellar level movie, but it had a feel of the type of acting I was thinking when I was watching it, like The O.C. or Dawson's Creek, which you go into those knowing it's going to be this level of acting. It's not going to be freaking, I don't know, A Beautiful Mind or Schindler's List. You know what I mean? It's not theme wise, but acting wise. But it's okay. Versus movies I've watched where it's not stellar acting and it really bothers me and I tear the movie apart. So that was the feel I got from it, is almost like watching The O.C. or Dawson's Creek as far as these characters. And so I liked it. And there was this really, and it's funny because I've only seen it once, this nostalgia, most definitely. So there must be some sense memory deep inside of me because it felt very nostalgic for me, even though I didn't remember a lot of it and I haven't seen it only that once. Mm-hmm. And then we'll get into it. The only thing, but this was an element too. I think the most terrible actor I've ever seen in my life was Freddie Prinze Jr. He was absolute abomination. However, usually I get real riled up, like angry. I was laughing. It was comedic almost. So I didn't feel angry and I didn't hate it. It was almost like, oh shit, here he comes. He's gonna do something. What is he gonna do? And just laughing. And then my daughter came towards the end of it, and she sat. My oldest daughter sat by me, and I didn't even say anything to her. And then he came in, and I think he did leave her alone. And she was like laughing, and she's like, "Oh my god, that guy!" And I'm like, "Right?" He reminded me of like freaking Zoolander. He was, but see, I'm enjoying it. Yeah. But what a terrible actor. So that's how I feel. And then we'll get into, more of everything.
He may have been a terrible actor in that movie, but damn, is he a good looking man back in that day. Whew, damn, Freddie Prinze Jr. Looks good. Girl.
He still looks really good. I saw an interview, I watched an interview. I don't remember when it was from, but it had to have been somewhat recently, maybe in the last 10 years or something. And it was him reflecting on this movie. So it was a quick clip. But he's also, he's all salt and pepper, like beard and hair. And I was like, damn, he looks exactly the same, except for his hair is a little bit gray. I was like, what happened? He looks just incredible.
See, I think he's a little goofy looking, but it might have been because he was always like this.
Yeah.
With his mouth open. I would be more of a Ryan Philippe.
Yeah, he was good looking too. Yeah.
He definitely had a Justin Timberlake vibe for sure. Like I was like, they're for sure going for the JT.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Back in the day. I didn't think he was that bad. There were definitely
Tawny.
like for sure his face. Like, but I feel like I've seen worse. I feel like I've definitely seen worse actors.
Okay, he has his girlfriend up against the car, and Ryan Philippe is like, you fucking promised me. And then
let her go, Barry.
He goes, hey, let it go. Or my favorite line, hey, let's try to calm down.
Yeah.
With his open mouth.
No, it's the open mouth. You're right. It's the open mouth that's like goofy as hell looking. There was one moment where it was like very serious, and then it was when they were talking about the notes, and then he was like, I got a note. It was like, it was really weird.
Hey,
he's like, he's after me too. Yeah.
Yeah. But it was very like, it was like whatever he had said right before that was very serious, and then he was like, I got a note. Like, I don't know. It was really weird.
Yeah.
I don't know. I didn't think he was that. He did look goofy as hell, but I don't think he was. For me, he wasn't as bad as he was for you. I don't think.
Yeah.
But
I enjoyed it though. Like again, I laughed my ass off, so it was good.
It was more of an enhancement of the experience than it took away.
Oh yeah, it didn't take away. Actually, yeah, that's a really good way to put it. It didn't take away because I was laughing instead of, if you've heard me on other shows where I don't like the acting, like I really get pretty irritated.
You go in on them. Yeah. Okay. For me, overall, I felt like it was okay. I also experienced kind of a bit of nostalgia because I was like, I feel like I've seen enough movies that were like this that it made me feel like I had watched this specific movie. But I think the thing for me is like, I really liked the beginning part. I felt like it was really strong in the beginning.
Yeah.
And then it sort of just devolved into a pretty cut and dry slasher. And slashers are not really like my favorite subgenre. Like I tend to get kind of bored of them. So I think that's just my own personal bias. But I didn't like that part, and it got really boring for me in like the back part. I could have my mind changed as we talk because I came across a thing of trivia that somebody said the chase scene with Helen and the guy, the fisherman, is like one of the best chase scenes in horror history, which I was like, okay, I don't know about that. But so maybe I can have my mind changed through our conversation, but that's kind of where I landed is I felt like it was just okay. But I felt like it started off really strong. I really love the concept of them murdering somebody and then having to like live with that guilt. You don't know this, Michael, but Felicia does. We've never talked about it on air.
Are we about to admit to something that you did? Are you about to admit you buried a body somewhere?
No.
Is that where this conversation's going?
But I think I might have in a past life or something. Oh. That sounds fucking crazy, but I'm not even sure that I really believe that that's a thing. But I've told Felicia this before. I have nightmares, and I've had nightmares for a while, like a long time, where it's like I've murdered somebody or I'm part of a group of people that murdered somebody and I had to cover it up. Like, and most of the time it's not like I chose to murder somebody. I'm just like caught in this web of like fucked up lies and I'm like an accomplice, but I get scared. And so we like bury the body. But then I'm like, well, we can't go to the cops now because now I'm an accomplice and I'm going to go to. So it's like this whole, it's like actually the worst nightmares that I have because they're so real and awful and terrible. I mean, they often like include like chopped up body parts, like buried somewhere that I know like somebody's gonna come across and like find me. It's so intense. I swear that I'm like picking up on the guilt of a past life or something. So
that may be.
The idea of this is like super terrifying for me personally. I'm like, it would suck to live your life and feel so guilty and be so scared and be like constantly looking over your shoulder. I thought that was really, really strong. And I wish that they had like, I don't know, leaned into that more. And then it just becomes like this guy who has a vendetta against these kids for seemingly no reason. That was one of my other big problems, but we can talk about that more later. Anyway, sorry, that went way too long. Michael.
Michael, before you jump in with all of your brilliance, I wanted to say, because I think this might, and maybe Tawny too, this might resonate. There was one thing, it was weird. I don't know why I felt this way. Maybe because we grew up with these actresses, especially, like we grew up with them, that when I was watching them, especially the scene where Jennifer Love Hewitt and Sarah Michelle Gellar are driving out to talk to his sister, like, oh, look, it was almost like look at watching this show when they were young, just starting out their acting careers. There's kind of like this, I don't know. It was fun. So anyway, that's all I want to say.
No, I totally agree. And like I kind of wanted to say the same thing as you guys did with the nostalgic thing. And I think it has a lot to do with like the soundtrack of this film, because the soundtrack is quintessential 90s. You get that opening establishing helicopter shot with Typo Negative playing in the background, the Summer Breeze song. Yeah. And it just really like sets the tone of this whole film. Like, and I think the setting in itself is very memorable as well, because they filmed this in North Carolina. So it's like, or was it South Carolina? I think it's South Carolina that they filmed this in. And so it's like the setting, the soundtrack, it's just so 90s to me.
Yeah. You know what? That's a really good point, because music intensely triggers, sense memories. So that could be some underlining why all of a sudden you start feeling all these warm and fuzzies.
Yeah. And another thing about it is they do a really good job at like, I feel like when I'm watching this film, anytime I feel like I'm watching it, I feel like I can almost smell like what the air smells like in this town. Like I feel I'm almost there. And I feel like they did a really, really good job with like setting the tone of this film, making it seem very summery, very like, I don't know. And I love the carefree nature of these kids at the beginning. Like Tawny said, I think the opening is really strong. What I like about it though, as far as like a slasher film, is I like that it doesn't, there are some parts that drag on. As Tawny was saying, like it does get kind of boring in some parts, but I also feel like I like that aspect because it's more so of a thriller than a slasher film. I mean, like there's people that are getting killed towards the end, but I don't know. I wouldn't really say it's much of a slasher movie. I mean, it is, but it isn't at the same time. It's more of like a psychological thriller, because it's like you go through all this stuff and it's like he's not just like hacking them up one by one. He's kind of like stalking them. He's taking the time to really like savor in the moment of hunting these kids and like terrorizing them before he actually gets to the kill, which I really like about it. Because it's not your like typical like slasher, I guess, format. It kind of goes like in that like more psychological thriller way. And that's what I appreciate about this film, is because in the 90s with all those slasher films that were coming out, and I feel like this one kind of sets itself apart just a little bit with like the way they kind of went about it. I feel like the second film, I Still Know We Did Last Summer, that's more of a slasher film because people are getting killed left and right in that film. But this one, I feel like they definitely took a more slow burn approach, which I kind of appreciate. And as far as like the one of the best chase scenes of all time, I 100% agree with that. I fucking love this chase scene. The way it's filmed. Sarah Michelle Gellar's acting in this film is just fantastic. I warned you and Tawny before we got on here. I was like, just prepare for me to gush a lot about Sarah Michelle Gellar in this movie, because she is phenomenal. I think what this movie kind of loses for me is I don't see much of a strong character in Jennifer Love Hewitt. I don't think she's a really that great of a final girl, to be honest with you. She's definitely better in the second film, but in this one, she's not. I don't know. I don't see like an overall progression with her.
Yeah.
And like that kind of bothers me. And I almost wish that Sarah Michelle Gellar would have lived instead. I wish it would have been Helen instead of Julie, just because I feel like Helen had more of a fight. Julie, not so much. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's a good point.
And I feel like I'm not the only person that said that, because like I know a lot of people like aren't a huge fan of Julie James as like a final girl, and a lot of people are like, justice for Helen Shivers, like she's the one that should have survived, not Julie. And I kind of agree with that. I kind of feel like, I don't know. And it's nothing against Jennifer Love Hewitt. I think she's a great actress, but I don't know. She's just not memorable for me. I think that's like the one that's like one of the negative things that I have about this film is just her character overall. I don't feel like she has much of a progression. I just feel like the entire movie, she's just this mopey, like, oh, I'm going to feel bad for myself and I'm going to, you know, and there's some cringeworthy moments with her as well. Like Felicia was talking about how like there's some cringeworthy moments with Freddie Prinze Jr. There's a couple with her, like when she's talking on the dock with Ray and she's like, I don't blame you for what happened last summer, but I don't want to know you either. And then she just runs off.
Yeah.
It's like so.
When she gets to the hospital, this is so quick. But when she gets to the hospital and comes out the elevator and walks out and stands there like this.
Yeah.
And then her friends are right over there. Like, who even does that? Even if someone you love is in the hospital. Just, you know, just these little moments. You're right. And even in the hospital, fast forward after they see their friend and everything. And then all of a sudden she's screaming at him, Freddie Prinze Jr. And she bursts out the door.
Yeah. She's like, I want to get something in your head. There is no you and me. And then she's just like, wait,
She was very like exasperated all the time. She's like got her arms out and her legs spread like she's about to run away, like at any given moment, like constantly. And she's just like, I also saw a lot of what I felt like was pre-Kristen Stewart bad acting.
100%. Yes.
Yeah, I was like, this is weird. This feels like she laid the groundwork. And it was like, was Kristen Stewart like a major fan of this movie, watched it over and over again and just tried to be Jennifer Love Hewitt's character? Like when she went to go act in other things, that's what it felt like. She was just very like... Jennifer...
And she does a lot of like the...
Yeah.
Yes. This mopey, always really concerned, sort of. Yeah, you guys, yes.
The screaming in the street thing, I know that's supposed to, I think, be a very iconic scene where she's like, where are you? Like, or whatever she's yelling, she's like,
what are you waiting for?
Yeah. I was like, that part was, this is where I feel like we start to dissolve into like comical, like it just becomes something that's like, feels like it's making fun of itself. And I think it was kind of, but I just thought, I felt like the beginning part of this movie I could take much more seriously than the back part. And the back part, you know, she's just like, what are you waiting for? People are just doing crazy shit. I was just like, okay.
Can I mention one more of those moments? Okay. My daughter, again, sat by me just to sit by me. And so I didn't tell her anything about anybody or how I was feeling. And it was when they were on the boat, her and Freddie Prinze and the bad guy. And there was like sometimes these delays. She had a good scream.
Oh,
nice pair of lungs. But when he like opened this hatch and then she went and screamed, it was like this little... And my daughter and I both laughed at the same time, but she has a good scream. Yeah. I agree with you though, Sarah Michelle Gellar, and it was a long sequence too, and she was panicked and screaming, and I preferred her character as well.
Well, she just steals the show from beginning to end, in my opinion. Like, I immediately latch onto her character, like, from the beginning, because, like, I just really, really like her. Like, and like it said, I might be biased because I've always loved Sarah Michelle Gellar. I've always been obsessed with her, but like, I just love what she brings to that character of Helen. Like, she's this very like, and that's why I like her character so much more than Julie, is because you see this like progression with Helen where she goes along with this, and then throughout the film you start to see that she feels more and more guilty, and she misses the friendship that she had with Julie, and you know, she was supposed to go to New York and become an actress, and like that hasn't worked out for her, so now she's like basically working at this dead-end job at her family's store. So it's just like she has much more. I feel like they really catered to her character a lot more than Julie James, in my opinion, because like with Julie James you just kind of get like a cut and dry backstory that she's failing school, and that's really all you know about her. Like the year that, like, after the year passes, like that's really all you know about Julie, is that she's failing school, she's not doing very well, she's not sleeping well, like. But with Helen, you get this whole, like, character, like, with how she interacts with her sister, how she interacts with her dad. Like, you just get so much more of a backstory with her character, and that's why I latch with her more. And I just feel like she just carries the film for me, in my opinion.
That makes sense. She is pretty bland, Julie. She's pretty bland of a character. And I think that they were going for her being the moral one. Like, she's the one who, like, kind of cares the most in the beginning. She's like, I want to know his name. Like, we should probably know his name, right? Like, before we dump him in the water. Like, I think that's where they were going, and it just wasn't as strong, like what you're saying, as the story of Helen.
Yeah. And I think it really benefited that they, you know, gave Helen such a character because, you know, I feel like there's a reason why some people say that she should have survived and not Julie. And it's because they I feel like they really took the time to develop her character more so than anybody else in the film. Like, I feel like everybody else is just kind of like background pieces compared to her. And she's kind of more so like the standout in this film, in my opinion. But
yeah, maybe they were trying to buck that. Like, oh, you think it's going to be this person, but it's not. I feel like they also kind of did that with Freddie Prinze, right? Like, they obviously set him up in the beginning to be, he's going to be the one who is doing all of this, right? So the whole movie, I'm expecting him to be, and so I was glad that it wasn't him, but I feel like that was a good choice, whereas maybe the other one isn't.
I'm so glad you said that. I was just thinking that there was, in the beginning, it made it seem like it was going to be him, and I was like, I don't remember this. Oh shit, is he going to be leading all of this throughout the whole movie? This is going to be good. So I'm glad they at least transitioned to her, but yeah, I agree with what you guys are saying.
I did like the story. The idea of the story was good. I like how it was supposed to be this guy who was, but the one thing about this that I couldn't get on board with is like, why would this guy harass these kids? Like, why? I just don't, I'm like, okay, but if he murdered that kid, wouldn't he just want to like keep a low fucking profile?
Yeah.
You would think,
oh, sweet, I got away with that. Fucking scot-free. Let me just take my shit and go somewhere else and just live a quiet life until I die, where I then confess on my deathbed that I murdered this guy. Like, I don't know. It just was weird. It was like, I just couldn't. And then to like do weird stuff, like cut off her hair. I just felt like this makes no sense. This guy's like an adult. He's like in his 40s and he's gonna fuck around with these kids, cut off her hair. Why?
Yeah.
I don't. That was like just one of the. I'm not.
He
saying
did do her a favor though.
Yeah, her hair looks way better short for sure. For sure. Yeah.
Maybe that's his new career choice.
There we go. Is a hairstylist.
He was like, I just wanted to try it out.
Yeah, he's in LA now doing like, you know, the star-studded like events, like, and welcome to stage Ben Willis.
One-handed barber.
Hook hand.
I did like how they, sorry to interrupt you, but I liked how they took off his hand. I kind of didn't immediately realize the tie back to the hook for a hand thing, but I liked it. I was like, oh, that's clever. Okay.
Yeah. Well, and I see what you're saying, like about like why you're wondering why he goes after these kids. Well, I think it's like one, because he already has like these murderous tendencies because he killed somebody, you know, and then, you know, they dumped his body. So of course he's angry now. So now he wants vengeance on these kids for just basically abandoning him, leaving him for dead essentially. And I don't know, like, I think that I was going to ask you, like, what are your thoughts on his, like, the overall, like, do you think he's an iconic horror character? Like, I love the weapon of the hook, though. I do like the hook.
Mm-hmm. I don't.
Really?
I wrote down, this seems like the most impractical. It was weird. It felt kind of shoehorned into me because of the whole setup in the beginning about like the hook for a hand. And I think it could have been done well, but it was so weird. And I think it's just the technical of watching it through the movie. The fucking sound effects were killing me. It was like, yeah, like it was so dumb. And I was like, okay. And then when he slashes the sister, Elsa or whatever, I'm like, okay, this isn't a sword. Like, what are we doing? I almost wish if we were going to go that direction, let's fucking lean into that. And I know that I had read that he actually tried really hard not to make this super gory. Like he was trying not to make it super bloody. And actually that scene in particular with the blood splatter, he originally didn't have any blood on the window, but then it like kind of didn't make sense. And they went back and reshot it to see the blood. But I'm like, if you were going to lean into the hook, you got to lean into the fucking hook. Like, you got to have a reason why you're using a hook. You got to hook people's ribs. I don't know. Like, tear out their jugular. Give me something. This doesn't make any sense. And so I felt like it was just sort of like I said, shoehorned in after the fact. Like, we got to make it match this story. I don't know.
Yeah.
I can totally see what you're saying. I liked the hook. I liked the first, well, I could see what you're saying too. There was times it fell off. I loved when he hooked that kid's neck
Max,
under his jaw.
Oh yeah.
In the very beginning where he's like, whoa, and I was like, whoa, nasty. I loved it. I liked how he was carrying Elsa by the rib cage and the hook. I was like, that's great. I liked that. But I agree also with, is he just like, because when he was going like this, so is he just slicing them with the tip? Or because you'd think if you hit somebody like this, it would hooked.
Stick.
Yeah, it would get hooked. And then you'd have to wrench it out and then do it again and wrench it out. So yeah, I can see both of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I that was another thing. I'm glad you brought that up, Tawny, because that's another thing I kind of like about this film is that it's a slasher film, yes, but it is kind of bloodless. Like they kind of went the Halloween route with this film, which I can also appreciate. I like that. But there is like a certain version, because I know that there's like 2 different versions out there. I feel like there's like a theatrical version that I've seen on TV, like a made for TV version. And then there's another version that's like much more bloody, like a little more bloody. So like, for example, when he's like killing Helen in the alley, when I remember distinctly like watching this movie on television, and like, I don't remember seeing any blood, but like when you watch the actual movie, like there's blood on her hands and she's like, you know, it's a lot more of a drawn out scene than it is when you watch it on TV. So I remember watching it on TV compared to watching the actual movie like in its entirety. And it is a little more violent like in its entirety than it is when you watch it on the, you know, the TV version. But still, there's not a lot of blood in this film, but I can appreciate that at the same time.
There's one thing, Tawny, you kind of mentioned it, but again, that could tie to, what are those called? Like OC and Dawson's Creek. They're not sitcoms. They're like TV series, I guess. That's kind of the same, but they were very obvious with their ideas in this movie. So for example, you talked about the hook. Here's the hook. Here's the hook. There's a story about a hook. A hook. The hook is the thing. One thing I was thinking is, okay, so they're all vibrant kids. Then she's in college. She is let's make her very clearly suffering. She is pale in her hair, and her friend keeps calling her ugly and pale. And yeah, we get it. And then after she, you know, all this is, now she is in college, beautiful, vibrant, her hair is shining, her makeup, I'm so happy here and I'm so happy here and you're going to ravage me and we're really happy. We're happy. Like they really pushed it in your face. Yeah. But it didn't super irritate me because it reminded me of how they would do that in a TV series, the OC, Dawson's Creek.
Yeah. And it's definitely a product of its time for sure. Like the 90s was like that quintessential, just like very cheesy.
Explaining everything to you, right?
Yes. Like it was still like the acting was still good for the most part, but it has its cheesy moments. Like I feel like everybody in this film has their moment of like cheesiness. Like for example, Sarah Michelle Gellar's character, however, like for example, you get her right. I love her introduction right off the bat because she's like a beauty queen and she's like steps forward and she, you know, she does her little pageant question. She's like, well, Bob, when I graduate at summer's end, I plan on moving to New York City to pursue my career as a serious actress. And she's like, through art, I shall serve my country. Like she had, like they all have their moments of like corniness, but I think it really brings so much to this film. And I think that's why I love this film so much. It's just because it's just, I don't know, the nostalgia factor of it for me is what keeps bringing me back to it. And like, there's just so many, I don't know, like this movie isn't the most perfect slasher movie ever made. But I still love it. I consider it a horror classic in my opinion. As far as like, when you look back at like horror movies that kind of, you know, made an impact, I feel like this movie definitely did that. But yeah, it's, I don't know. Like I said, it's not like the most perfect film in the world, but I still love it.
Yeah, there were good moments. Like, and I liked the idea. I liked the idea of taking an urban legend and sort of like using that as the outline and sort of the, I don't know. I liked that part a lot. And again, that was kind of the beginning. Is like, I like this setup. I wanted to just say on the same thing of like weird moments in the very beginning. I think it was Ray who said something to Julie about like, cite your source or something. Like they were like,
oh God, yeah.
I had an internal struggle because I was like, ew, wait, that was kind of funny. Like, I was like, I don't know. I really had one of those moments where I was like, did I like that or did I fucking hate that? I can't decide. And I feel like there were a lot of moments like that where I was like, that was like way crazy, but maybe I liked it. I don't know.
And that's the fun of it, though, because, like, you know, Felicia said that she wasn't irritated by any of, like, the cheesy, like, over-the-top scenes. It was entertaining. It added to the experience. And, like, that's what I love about this film. Is just, like, it just adds to the experience. Like, yes, there's parts where it's bad and it's cheesy and it's, you know, your quintessential 90s slasher, but I don't know. I love it. I think it's great.
Would you classify this as a psychological thriller over a slasher?
Yeah, kind of. Okay. Because the body count in this film isn't like
it's low.
Your typical like, how many people die in this film? Like 5 people. So there's Max, there's the sheriff, or there's the cop, there's Elsa, there's Helen, and there's Barry. So there's 5. Yeah. Not if you don't count David Egan, but you don't even see him die, so I don't count him. Yeah. But like in a typical slasher, you get like much more of a body count than that. You get like maybe 10, 15 people in one film. And this one's very, and the fact that it's so drawn out with like the, you know, the amount of time between kills, you know, so you get like Max's kill and then you get like another like 30 minutes before Barry gets killed off and then Helen. And then, you know, it's just like, it's not like a one after the other type of thing. So I would consider it more of like a psychological thriller than a slasher. But I can't think of her name right now. The one that originally wrote the book. I know we did last summer. She detests this film.
I was just about to tell you about it. Yeah. So
yeah, she hates it.
I'm going to read. It's kind of long, so stick with me here. Oh wait, I actually have 2. So I'll do this first one. So her name is Lois Duncan, and she was vehemently opposed to her book being reworked into a slasher film. This was due to the fact that her youngest daughter was murdered by an unknown assailant in 1989. Her original book wasn't that far off from a slasher, though. It's still a bunch of guilty teenagers being stalked and terrorized by a murderous madman. It's just that no one dies in her version. So in that sense, it's more like an old school mystery than it is a slasher. And I actually found after I read that, I kind of wished in the movie, and again, maybe this is just my dislike of slasher. I don't hate it, but it's just not my favorite genre, like subgenre. I wish almost that they would have leaned more into that, like the murder mystery aspect. If they were going to go a different direction in the back part of this movie, like I wish it had been more that than the slasher. Just because I know you said earlier, this guy's a murderous guy. I just don't buy that this midlife guy. What am I trying to say? Middle-aged, thank you. Midlife. This middle-aged man is going to toy with and fuck with these kids for so long before murdering them. Like, he murdered that guy because he murdered his daughter. Like, that makes sense. That's a motive. And they tried to murder him, but like, I don't know. It was like I just couldn't get past it. It was weird to me. So I wish they had gone that direction a little bit.
Yeah, I can agree with that. Like, it kind of seems like the first half of the film was more of a psychological thriller, and then the last half of the film is more of a slasher, and it seems like they didn't really know what they wanted to do. Like, what side of the fence they wanted to go on. It just kind of seemed like it was like, okay, we're going to do a psychological film here, but now it's going to be a slasher, but now it's going to be a it kind of goes back and forth, so I can understand that. Yeah.
Also, I guess I'm going to try to this is my long one, and I'm going to try to paraphrase this, but I guess in the book, there's an older brother of the boy the kids run over, and he assumes 2 identities, and he infiltrates the group of kids and becomes somebody who's courting both of the women separately under different names, Bud and Collie. And so even Julie breaks up with Ray at one point and becomes gets together with this guy. It's not until the end of the book that you realize, sorry, I'm just ruining this book for everybody, but that it's the same person. So you assume as you're reading that it's 2 different people. And he also shoots Barry and paralyzes him in one scene. But again, nobody dies. Ray figures out that they are the same in the ending and clubs him over the head. And the kids actually turn themselves in for the hit and run at the ending. So I was also a different take that it seems like they just scrapped that entirely and kind of went a different route for the actual plot of it. But I kind of liked that. I was like, that seems different.
Yeah, you know what? Yeah. You're right, because even at the end of the day, they did hit and run and then dragged the body and threw the guy overboard.
Mm-hmm.
But they were like, wow, this whole time we thought we killed him, but we didn't. I can go on with my life.
Yeah.
Dude, you fucked up. And you like you.
They made some sort of like reference in the beginning of the movie where they were like, something, we're going to get in trouble because of a hit and run. I was like, hit and run? This is like second-degree murder, manslaughter at the least, right? Like you just killed somebody with your car. Like, I think this is before they found out, but I was just like, yeah. And then for them to just be like, to just lie. Like the cops are like, do you have any idea why this guy would be fucking with you? They're like, no clue.
No.
It's like, what?
I'm not admitting to anything.
Come clean. He's obviously not dead, you fucks. I can't believe it was so fun. I laughed out loud when he got his hand like cut off and then just slipped into the water. Like, I was like, what? He literally just said, you want to make sure somebody's dead before you leave them. I'm like, that guy's coming back, you guys. Don't lie to the cops now again, a second time. Tell them everything so that when this guy inevitably comes back, I know that's very logical. That's not movie logic, but I just...
No, I have to agree. Like, and that was part, like these pieces weren't fully developed. So it was more of like, it was almost like I'm just going to say it. I was going to say a young adult type of story, but there's like some amazing young adult fiction out there. So I shouldn't say that. But I did. So go ahead and scratch it. But things not fully developed, but just kind of thrown in there. So for example, when they hit the guy, all the logic, I was like, this is asinine. So I love it when you're like, no, you got to tell. And then someone brings up something where you're like, oh shit, that might make me question telling. That I like when that happens. This, no. Because they're like, no way, they're not going to believe I wasn't driving because it's my car. Well, you're drunk. Yeah, they're going to think I'm driving drunk. They're not going to believe you were. No, they absolutely will. I'm not drunk, so I was driving because my friend's wasted. There's alcohol all over the car. Okay, yeah, because you had an open bottle. So that wasn't smart. We shouldn't have had him in there. But what about this, man? We're going to all go down for... I was sitting here thinking... No, just call the police. This dude's walking on a cliff. Yeah. You would never know. So I like didn't buy that. But again, it didn't ruin it for me because I realized what it was obviously they're, need to have this, like they're kind of worried about going to prison, even though it doesn't make, I mean, it makes sense being worried about going to prison. But in this particular case, you could feel pretty certain that you guys would be okay if you did the right thing. But then we wouldn't have a movie, right? That's what my husband always says to me. You wouldn't have a movie. Yeah, I know.
Exactly. Another thing I kind of wanted to touch on too is I feel like this movie, it's a slasher, but I feel like, I don't know, it's like also kind of tragic because you see these kids like with such big futures at the beginning, and then it just kind of like, this big event happens in their life and they all just kind of, all the dreams and the aspirations that they had just kind of go out the window, and then they end up getting like murdered. So it's like, they hit this guy and like dumped his body, but they didn't deserve that. Like they didn't deserve to get murdered. So it's sad. Like it's also kind of like a sad film. Like when you watch it, like when you watch it more than once, you're like, damn. Like, and I think I'd like attributes to like feeling, for these characters as well, especially like I said, Helen Shivers' character. Like I don't know, like just her whole like character arc through the whole thing. Like I'm just rooting for her the entire time. And I also really, really love that whole sequence. Like I know that Tawny said it doesn't make sense for him to just cut her hair, but like the reason why it makes sense to me is just because like he's listening in on the conversation and like with the sister, because he's hiding in the closet and like the sister's like talking about like you and your hair, like it's pathetic, and he hears that, so like he's probably like just another way to fuck with her, so I'll just cut her hair off. But I love that whole sequence, like the whole sequence where she's in her house and it's like the whole like cat and mouse thing where it's like the way they shot this film is really cool, because you get that shot of Helen walking out of the kitchen and like going towards the stairs, and you see him like go into the room just as she like turns to go upstairs. I love that whole like
that was
love
good.
That sequence. Yeah. And then when she wakes up and her hair is just like everywhere, it's so cool. I don't know.
Yeah.
I love it.
I think my favorite death was all the crabs in the dead body in the trunk with all the crabs. I really liked that. But on the flip side, not on the flip side, but just a point, this guy is like a fucking superhero. He got all these crabs and the dead body out of the trunk in broad daylight within minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I did love that when you open it and there was that dead body with all the crabs. I thought that was pretty cool.
I liked that too. That was good. And I guess they actually added that scene in way after the fact. Like they had done test screenings and the audience was essentially like, we need to see something happen before something, because that way we know this guy is an actual threat. So that was shot way after the fact and put in.
Yeah, because they added the death scene with Max. The Max character, because originally I don't think he was going to get killed off in this film, or if he was, it was going to be off screen or something. So like, yeah, I remember seeing that too, Tawny, is that like audiences were like, okay, we're like 30-40 minutes into this movie and nothing has happened. We need to see something. So like they added that scene with Max getting killed.
Ooh, that was one of my faves.
Yeah, I like the way it looks when he just like drags him off the table and there's like that streak of blood.
So cool. I liked that too. Yes. Yeah. I was going to say, just based on what you were saying, Michael, I pulled this little thing too. I don't know who said this. This was just from IMDb, but it said the accident and cover-up symbolize the loss of innocence from childhood to adulthood. The protagonists are teenagers graduating from high school, and the plot takes place after they've spent a year trying to live as adults. Helen notably has become a fallen princess. Julie was once a straight-A student whose grades are slipping, and Barry was once the big man on campus that ends up in hospital. The characters lamenting how they can't go back to how their lives were before the accident parallels how they can't become innocent again. I feel like maybe that's reaching a little bit, but like I don't disagree with the sentiment that like there's a major life change after you graduate high school and there's no way to go back after that. Like now you're just an adult. So I kind of liked that. And I thought I agree that it is kind of a tragic story, especially for Helen, because her dreams were so big, like compared to everybody else. And then she fell so far short of those dreams. At least so far, it's only been like a year, but you know what I mean? Like you can tell that she feels way not good about the way that things are going. And, you know, her sister gives her shit for it, kind of. Her
sister's just a bitch.
The worst.
God, she's the most horrible person. Oh,
she really is.
I really wanted her to get killed. I was
and
happy.
You were glad when it happened.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I was also like, this bitch. And then when she was like banging on the door for 18 minutes and she like will not move faster, I was like, come on. I mean, I get it. We're supposed to be building tension or whatever. And she's also terrible. So maybe she would move that slow in this situation. But I was just like, come on.
Yeah, but even the sister's just like, even when she's like, I'm being attacked, and she's like, what? She's like, is this some kind of joke? She just acts like it's like...
Dude, she loathes her sister.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, and I think it also is because I think the older sister is jealous of her. I think I get a lot of that is because Helen is like destined to be like a star, and her sister, because she brings up a comment when, like in that bedroom scene, she's like, is the washed up has-been ready to have a moment or something like that? And it's like, I feel like she's almost talking about herself in that sense, but she's projecting her shit out on her sister because she's so jealous that she's not as pretty and she's not as like destined for stardom as her sister is. And so like now I feel like now that, you know, this year has passed and her sister hasn't like achieved everything she's wanted to, now she's like, oh, well, look at you. Now you're working at the department store with me. Wow. Huh. Yeah. Like, I just feel like there's a lot of like resentment towards Helen.
Yeah.
Coming from her sister. So.
As far as sisters go, let me just also say David Egan's sister, I really liked her as a character.
Yeah, me too.
She was in it for like, I don't know, just a couple minutes. It was like very short, small part, but I feel like she really did a lot.
Well, Anne Hesh, right? Anne Hesh.
Yeah, yeah.
She's a great actress.
She is.
Yeah.
Yeah, like her character, like you said, Tawny, she doesn't have a lot of screen time, but for the screen time that she has, she like demands your attention.
Yeah, totally.
Like anytime that she's on screen, you're just like so immersed in like what she's saying. Like when she's telling the story about how, you know, after David died, like her mom, you know, she had to go into a home in Aurora and all this stuff, and how she met that guy, like how this guy reached out to her, and you know, it's just like you're just so invested in her character, and it kind of sucks that she doesn't have more of a character in this film, but what she did with the character that she did a really fantastic job. Yeah,
I think there was a lot there that I almost wanted to know more about her, and all of that. And I watched like a behind the scenes, and it was one of the producers, I think, talking about the director putting that scene in the movie, the second scene where she's like cutting up fish and stuff, like, and she was like, at some point I was just talking to Jim and I was like, that's his name, right? Director? Yeah, Jim. She was like, we are off the fucking rails. This is like the craziest scene. Why are you putting this in the movie? It makes no sense. We have to take this out. Like, she was like panicked about it. She was like, now I go back and this is my favorite scene in the whole movie. And she said something about him having like a vision for this movie that just was fantastic. And I thought that was interesting because it was a good scene. I liked it. Yeah.
Do you guys have like speaking of like favorite scenes, do you guys have like a specific favorite scene? Not to like completely hijack the I'm just curious, like, did you guys have like a favorite scene when you were watching this film?
I would have to say, just off the top of my head, I think my favorite scene is the one around the campfire talking about the story, because I just thought it was really interesting and fun and self-aware, right? Like that scene for sure has that like scream self-awareness. Like,
100%. Yeah.
Just, I liked that. And I wish something more had happened with that, kind of like, I don't know. I liked that they were just being very frank about like, oh, it's like this. Cause I also love those stories. And yeah. So I think that was probably my fave.
Very nice. Yeah. And I also like in that scene how you kind of get a little bit of a backstory with every character. Cause like you were saying, you know, you get the scene where Helen and Barry are by themselves, and Helen's going on this big monologue about how she's going to like, how she's going to join being an actress, and that he's going to impregnate her with the first of like 5 children. And he's going to be like a huge NFL quarterback, whatever, and stuff like that. And then you get like Julie and Ray's kind of storyline where, you know, Ray's going to become like a famous novelist, and he's going to, you know, move away and he's going to find someone else. And I like that scene with Julie because I felt like there was some vulnerability with her character. Me like too. There was something for her to go off of. And then like for the rest of the movie, she just doesn't.
Yeah, totally. And that's the thing is like their dialogue together as couples felt very funny and real, and like, I don't know, it was very nice because it felt like they were both kind of ribbing each other. Like, it was fun. I really enjoyed the moment with Ray and Julie, right? Because she's like, he's like, oh, you just understand me. And she's like, I feel your pain. But you can tell that they're like, he's like, she's poking him a little bit, poking fun at him. All of this was really, really good, I felt like. Yeah.
It's like a very, very strong, it opens very, very strong, like with just developing these characters in some way. The only problem is I don't feel like they did a whole lot to develop them further, except for Helen's character. Helen's the only one that really gets like a full-fledged character arc moment in this film. The rest of them just kind of are there.
Totally.
Yeah. Barry's still an asshole. Like, Barry has this moment where he's kind of nice for like 2 seconds when they're at the parade. And he kind of like looks back at Helen, and they kind of have that moment, which I think is a nice moment. Like when they kind of like give each other the, you know, ooh, we're going to fuck in the back seat of a car later or something, you know? Like the very subtle, like, ooh, you know, but like I really feel like Helen's character is really the only one that fully gets her moment in this film. So I can appreciate that though, since she is the best character, but just me. What about you, Felicia? What's your favorite?
I would have to say, and I know it's a big long thing, so I don't know if it qualifies for a scene, but the chase scene with Helen, for sure. Second to that, the only one that came up into my head was actually when they hit the guy, and they're, you know, that tension of like, what do we do? Oh my God. I thought that Barry did a good job with his Ryan Philippe, you know, just all of that, and that. And you know, his anger is his drunkenness, and then also with Helen and everybody, and the women were the smartest. I like that too. But if I had to pick one, it would be the chase scene with her.
Well, and the thing that's cool about the chase scene is that the department store that they filmed at is still there today. And they still have the whole elevator thing with the rope. They still have that.
Yeah, that's like a real elevator, I read. And they were just like, oh, let's just use this, which is cool.
Yeah. And they have a photo. They have a photo in the store of Jennifer Love Hewitt and Sarah Michelle Gellar standing with the owner of the store at the time, which I think is
that's cool.
Yeah, so it's like on the top of my bucket list of places to go visit is the place where they filmed. I know we did last summer, because like most of the places are still there. Like the store is still there. Some of the dock places are gone now. Like they're not there anymore, but like some of the stuff is still there. So I would just, oh my God, I would love to go see that. But yeah, I wanted to bring up the whole like elevator thing because Sarah Michelle Gellar like literally had to, like she was using a real rope
to crank
and she talks about how like it was cutting her hands up, like the rope, like she was actually pulling herself up. Like that wasn't like stunt. Like she's actually pulling herself up by her own like strength. So she was talking about how like by the end of it, her arms and her hands were just like completely just like cut up because this was like really rough rope that they were using.
That stuff is not fun to touch. I know that.
No, because she talks about how when she got there, she was like, okay, like I'm going to pull myself up from this elevator. And she talks about how she was expecting for it to be like this like prop rope that they had replaced with the actual rope. And she's like, nope, it was the rope that they had for the actual elevator. And I had to pull myself up from it. She was like, so that was not fun. Yeah.
I did think,
how about you? Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Just on that same note, I did think this is the weirdest department store I've ever seen in my life. And I think part of it was probably like set design because there was just like 18,000 mannequins with bags over them. And I was just like, okay, I don't know. But I guess that's exactly what this department store looks like. And it looks the same now. It's a clothing store that sells appliances. And I was like, weird.
What defines a department store? Because I always think of a department store like Macy's and Sears. This was like a town shop.
Oh, I don't know.
This reminded me of like a kind of like an antique shop because they had like just jewelry section and they had like this like
here's some perfume. This is our perfume section.
Yeah.
So we also sell mannequins. Actually, we have a stock of mannequins.
We sell the clothes, but if you want the mannequins as well, the mannequins come free of charge with the clothes. But I like that whole like setup too with the mannequins as well. It doesn't make cool. It does look cool, but it doesn't make sense. And maybe I've had a theory about this because I don't want to spoil anything for the second film, but I would maybe love to come back on with you guys and talk about the second movie as well. And we can talk about like the theories that I have for the first film. Okay. But it doesn't make sense how he's hiding underneath this plastic, but he's able to turn off the lights in the department store and do all this other shit. And totally. like how he's able to pull a Houdini, I don't fucking know. But he's like under the plastic, but yet he's able to turn the light switch off from underneath. I don't know.
It'd be like
yeah. The same thing with the crabs.
Yeah.
And the truck and the body in broad daylight, like super fast.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. What's yours?
Oh man. Probably any scene with Helen, but specifically like the chase scene, or I really, really enjoy the scene where she's at her house and like the whole hair cutting scene. Those two scenes really stand out to me as like very memorable. So yeah, probably those two. Or I really like the moment right before the hair scene where her and Julie kind of have that moment in the car where she's like talking about how she like misses her and, you know, she's talking about like how she just wants to go back to that, and obviously they're never going to be able to. I really like that moment. That's a really nice moment. That's the thing. That's like one of the other things that I really like about this film is it has really nice moments sprinkled throughout where it's just like you really, really care for these characters a lot.
Yeah.
And that's one that stands out to me. And it almost like I've heard people talk about, they're like, this is kind of like Sarah Michelle Gellar and Jennifer Love's kind of lesbian scene in a sense, because it's almost kind of like there's almost kind of like not sexual tension, but the way that Sarah Michelle Gellar delivers it, it's almost like she had like this like kind of almost like underlining crush for her or something. Did you get that? Did you get that when you watched that the last time?
I didn't.
But I mean, I remember, you know, having best friends in college and like, I mean, in high school, and like my best friend was my best friend and we loved each other. And so I think that's why I didn't read it that way.
Yeah.
But yeah. I don't know.
And it's kind of like something we talked about when we talked about the Jennifer's Body episode as well. We talked about like those connections that you make like with, you know, specifically girls in high school, like the connection that they have with each other is like on a whole other level. So it's super like maybe intense. It's just that. Yeah. So yeah.
You know what, to add on to that, and this is a weird scene to say, but one where I did have like this moment was when those two were in the car driving to the sister's house. They barely said anything. Maybe it was just they were those two best friends again going on this adventure together, and it was really natural and easy. it's really hard for me to explain, but I like that. And that was actually the moment where I thought, oh, look at like where I was saying we grew up with them and here they are. And I don't know. I had a moment with that.
I agree.
Yeah.
I don't think you're crazy for saying that, because I felt the same way when they walk up to Barry's house. Even though there's nothing, it's just like they have good chemistry together. They feel like they could have been actual friends, you know, and they probably were because they worked together on this set, right? There's nothing like really in particular that I could point to, but it did feel like, oh, these are like old friends reunited now in the service of something greater, right? Because they're trying to rally everybody and figure out what's going on. So
yeah.
Oh yeah, Tawny said it way better than me. I agree with that.
I also would like to say that you can definitely tell Sarah Michelle Gellar does not smoke in this movie. Like, she does not smoke. Like, because she's very like, because like her character smokes, but you can tell that in real life she probably didn't smoke.
Yeah,
because she just looks completely grossed out by it.
This is random, but I want to make sure to mention it because I was like, whoa, I didn't know this, but I guess Sarah Michelle Gellar and Freddie Prinze Jr. met and became good friends after this film, and they're fucking still married.
Yeah.
I was like, whoa, didn't know that.
It's so cute too.
I did know they were married, and when I watched this, I was like, wow, I'm surprised she still married him after this terrible acting performance. I literally wrote that on my paper. I'm sorry, guys. I have to say it, but
it was probably the looks. That's probably what it was. Yeah. Well, and they have like 2 kids together.
Oh, do they? That's cute.
That's cute. I didn't know that.
I'm like, how did I miss that?
I know they got married, but I didn't know they had kids. Because they were also on Scooby-Doo together, right?
Oh. Okay.
And might I say, Sarah Michelle Gellar is like the perfect portrayal of Daphne. I just have to say it. She's perfect for that character. Like, no one else would be able to play her the way she plays her. Same with Freddie Prinze Jr. I thought he did a really good job as Freddie, but we're not gonna. That's a whole different subject. I feel like
whole different movie.
Yeah. Rein it in, Michael. Rein it in.
What else? Oh, because obviously we've talked about this a lot. My favorite part about this was the Hook story and all of that. I looked up a little bit of information about this because I was really intrigued just from that really quick exchange that they have about it, where she's like, oh yeah, it was made up to stop teenagers from like having premarital sex and something about castration. I was like, okay, I gotta look this up. So here's just some information about that by itself. So the origins of the Hook legend are not entirely known, although according to folklorist and historian Jan Brunvand, I don't know how to say that name, the story began to circulate in sometime in the 1950s in the United States. So they've speculated that the legend might have roots in real-life Lover's Lane murders. This is Snopes writer David Mickelson has speculated this, like the 1946 Texarkana Moonlight murders. I didn't look up anything about that, but I think it's worth potentially looking into if you're curious.
Yeah.
But I also have here that folklorists have interpreted the long history of the legend in many ways. So Alan Dundee's Freudian interpretation explains the hook as a phallic symbol and its amputation as a symbolic castration. Then we've got Swedish folklorist, I'm not even going to try to say his name, describes the story as an example of a conflict between representatives of normal people who follow the rules of society and those who are not normal, who deviate and threaten the normal group. My guess is that's based on the idea of like the escaped mental patient version of this story, potentially. Yeah. And then the last piece that I have is American folklorist Bill Ellis interpreted the maniac in the hook as a moral custodian who interrupts the sexual experimentation of the young people. So there's some more about that, but it didn't make total sense to me. But I thought that those were interesting reads on it, and it makes sense kind of that there's this like, it's like a phallic symbol and it gets taken off. And then again, like in the movie, you've got his arm that gets taken off. I don't know.
Yeah, that is interesting. I just want to say, like, is there ever just people made up a scary story? Because I'm sure Stephen King could say, yeah, I just like wanted to scare the shit out of you without any other underlining messages. And then, of course, in a lot of his stuff, he has underlining messages too. I'm just wondering, like, I think That's not all true with whoever made up this story, but I think sometimes like mental institutions escape mental patients. That is scary. And hook hands. Definitely the lover's lane and premarital sex. I can see that one, I think, the most, like scaring kids to go
for sure. I agree.
to lover's lanes, right? But I just want to like have I just want to create a scary story and they put it out there and like see when people say like what I meant by it besides just to scare the shit out of you.
Totally.
Yeah.
I get what you're saying, because I have had this idea for like maybe a short or something, but it involves like drug use, and I'm like, I don't know if I want to do this, because like I'm not trying to make a statement on drug use.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to say like if you're I don't know, if you're going to do drugs, like everything's going to fall apart in your life or anything like that. Like that's not my intent. It's just like something that I think is scary. So I think that's for sure true. And it made a lot more sense actually that that's the Freudian like explanation of this is, because it's all about sex and death essentially with the Freudian reads of things. So I definitely think it's just people's interpretation, which could be way overly analyzed,
Yeah, and you know what? For this short you're talking about, you should absolutely do it. I think that when we have ideas and content and creation that we want to put out in the world, we should absolutely do it. And whatever, people think about it or how they try to interpret it. And I think there's something really nice about just telling a story. And I won't get crazy, but we watched the movie Beguiled, and I won't say anything about it except for this. At the end of it, it was such an interesting experience because I said this to my girls who watched it with me. It was just a story. This is what happened to us. And that's what was presented. There was maybe there were some like deeper themes. It didn't feel like it. It felt like this was just a story of what happened to these people. And it was, I enjoyed it, and it was really nice to just hear about the story. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah, I like that.
I have only a couple little giggly things or things that made me giggle. I have great song in the intro. Whew. Just loved it. I was ready for it when that was playing.
I also love the weird song that's playing in the department store too during Helen's I love that song. I remember it's called Two Wiki by Hooverphonic, and they also have a song that they do in I Still Know You Did Last Summer, but it's such a weird song, but I love the sound of it. I don't know why. Sorry, go on.
I'll have to go back and listen to
that. No, I was like, yeah. I have a note that says, what a fun town, damn. Like in the beginning. Not everything else that happened, obviously.
I did like the setting of the town. Like, I feel like it's not really a vibe that you get. Is this like fisherman, like, I don't know what to call it, but it's like a super fishing heavy place. And I just felt like, oh, that's a little different, It
was like a small town where everybody loved partying with each other versus small town where you want to get out of it because people are gossipy. And it's, totally. I loved that. Yeah. I do have a note that says, do fishermen in these fisherman towns all walk around fully with the hat and the slicker all the fucking time? Like I did put that because that scene, right? When there were so many of them.
Yeah.
That was funny.
Is this like typical? Because I don't know. Maybe it is. Yeah. Maybe it's typical.
I also like how when she gets in the boat of Ben, obviously he ends up being the killer, but the first thing that she spots, I feel like, is the hat. And it's like, oh no. And it was like, he's a fisherman. Like, it's not the clue.
And also I wanted to add to that, how the fuck does she know which boat to run on? Because he's just like, on the boat, inside, hurry. He doesn't even like tell her which boat. She just happens to know exactly which one to go on. Okay.
Yes.
That was funny.
Yes. And just two more things. I have, why would they all grab? Okay. So when Helen was sitting at the show, she was the previous year's queen. So she's sitting there. She sees her boyfriend getting hacked up. So she starts running and everyone comes in and grabs her. Like, why did I know why, because the movie didn't want her to get up there quick enough. But like, when is that? People are usually like, whoa, what the fuck? And they'd probably like back up.
Yeah.
They all grabbed her. So it's not a big deal, but I was like, why did they all grab her? What a weird thing to do. And also my only last thing is, and this could just be me because I just made a comment of how they really drilled home making sure we knew, like telling us she is sad, she is happy, that, you know, that sort of thing. But I didn't catch on that my favorite character, Freddie Prinze Jr., was the guy that went and talked to the sister. Like, I saw the Billy Blue, so I thought for a moment, oh my God, he's the murderer. But let me explain. And then all of a sudden, at one point, he's saying, that's why I went to see his sister. And I was like, oh, that was you? Like, I didn't catch that, you know. And now I'm going back thinking, and so that woman, when she thought there was a moment between them, was there really not a moment? But anyways, that's because I love that character of that, you know, the sister. Anyways, that, like, I didn't catch that. And then I almost thought, oh, wait a second. Oh, so this guy, that is the story, is that he killed the sister and then they almost killed him. Okay, so he is the bad guy. I don't know. Kind of when it was there and in my face, I'd almost thought, oh, wait, I thought there was going to be more like unveiling this to me. But here it is. We're here.
May I add, I love your Freddie Prinze Jr. impersonation.
I know.
It's fucking fantastic. I was dying laughing when you were like, Julie,
let it go.
Let me explain. It's almost like he made his voice more deep for this movie.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't sound like it's his natural voice at all. Like, it sounds very, like, deepened for the role, in my opinion.
Yes, but I said, I can't handle this breathy. He's always sounding so breathless.
Yeah.
I even wrote down all of these quotes because they were making me laugh. Let it go, man. And that your scene, Tawny, your scene you're talking about where they were all talking on the beach. So I did like that, but I was so preoccupied with Freddie Prinze Jr. that's why I didn't get the same sort of great feelings from that scene like you guys did, because I was focused on him, because this was the first, like, you know, he's, no, man, you're wrong. And so I was just like, oh God, this guy. So I missed all the other good stuff that was going on. Okay. Sorry, Michael, go ahead.
You're good. The one thing that I wanted to bring up that I almost forgot to bring up actually, is I'm really like, yes, this is another holiday horror film. Like, this is a film that they were like, oh, what holiday can we, you know, set this film? I think it's really clever that they set this film on the 4th of July because, you know, with the whole chase scene with Helen, like, you've got the fireworks going off when she's running through the alley, which is a really cool sequence, you know, and they've got like the big parade that's going on that's really loud and really noisy. So it makes sense that people aren't going to like hear what's going on. Like, if something is going on, they're not going to hear it. I just think it's really clever. And also, you know, with the setting, I also like that they used the hook for a weapon because that's something that, you know, fishermen use to, you know, gut fish and stuff like that. Or, you know, so I think it's really clever that the killer utilized what he had and took advantage of this specific holiday to set whatever he had in mind in motion, because I think that's another way that he was like planning on getting away with this, is just the fact that he was like, okay, I can do it under the guise of the 4th of July. Nobody's going to be paying attention. No one's going to be expecting what's going on around them. Like, people are going to be more focused on, ooh, the big pretty fireworks. I can just go like under the radar and do all this shit. So I think it also kind of adds a little bit more to the believability that he's getting away with all this, just because it's like on a specific holiday where it's out of the norm for stuff like this to happen, if that makes sense. So I thought it was really clever that they used like a specific holiday, because this slasher film quite honestly could have taken place at any time during the summer. It didn't have to be the 4th of July. But I think the fact that they used the 4th of July as a specific, you know, date, I think that's really clever.
Isn't it so because it's the anniversary of her death? Like, I think it's that same, it's 4th of July that she dies. So I kind of took that to mean like, that's like it's kind of a bonus, but it's like a secondary bonus. I
think like mainly the book, I think mainly the story could have, even the anniversary of the death could have been at any time, but since it was on 4th of July.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, but I like how that played out, especially with in the alleyway. Yeah, like. But
you're right; it was the anniversary. And to add on to that, I just wanted to say I agree, because I love moments in movies where I feel like, oh yeah, totally. Like the believable moments, even when they challenge my morality or what I think I would do. Like, for example, if there was a hit and run, if you have a really believable reason of why you might do that, or the character does, then that makes you go, oh shit, okay, I can see that. But anyways, I was sitting with my daughter at that moment when she was getting killed in the tires. And my daughter goes, it's just right there. There's all of these people walking and they're not just like, he's killing her right there. And I immediately was like, well, no, I mean, there's the fireworks, the sound of the musical instruments, a marching band. You are absolutely not looking around down the alleys and shit. You're looking at the little thing that has your music and you're marching in line. So totally believable. And I love those moments where they are just very believable.
Yeah.
Yeah. Except the one pet peeve I have in that moment, every time I watch it, I'm like, if you wouldn't have stopped, you would have made it, you dumb bitch.
Yes, I did scream. We both were like, fucking run into the marching, like run.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh shit, a marching band.
Yeah. She takes that moment to like turn around and make sure that there's nobody chasing her. It's like, if there's somebody chasing you, fucking run. What are you doing?
Yeah.
And I thought for a second, oh, he's going to jump out from the tires because he's Houdini. There's like no way he made it all the way around, but he could. This fisherman dude could.
He's definitely part magic.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, not to mention that I kind of have like grievances towards this film for another reason, too, because my friend, like a really long time ago, one of my friends that knew I was like obsessed with Sarah Michelle Gellar, I'd never seen this movie. And so he tricked me into believing that she survived this movie. Like, he's like, oh, yeah, she lives. She survived. So I'm sitting here like, oh, I'm like so invested. I'm watching this scene. I'm like, OK, she's going to live. She's going to live. And then that happens. And I was like, you mother. I was like so mad.
That's terrible.
So that's kind of like a
I loved it when she was in the back of the cop car, because that's something I've seen that in another movie too, that is just really terrifying if you're locked in the back of a cop car and the murder's coming. You know what? I actually think that was in the Poughkeepsie tapes.
Yeah.
Yes. And that scene is terrifying.
Yeah.
That scene is so scary. Yeah.
So that's a scary thought.
Mm-hmm. Well, how are we feeling? Do you think we're ready to rate it?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay.
I don't want to go first, though. I always go first. Someone else go first.
Michael, you go first since it's your movie.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm gonna give it like a 4 out of 5. Just because I feel like it doesn't get like a solid 5 for me, just because, you know, some of the stuff that we talked about. I don't think it's like the best slasher film ever made. But I think the stuff that they do as far as, you know, the setting, the nostalgic factor, the fact that these, you know, specifically Helen's character has so much to like go off of, and like I just root for her from beginning to end. And there's just so many good moments in this film that kind of separate it from other slasher films that I've seen. Like, because I feel like a lot of slasher films are just like hacking and, you know, body counts and stuff like that. They don't spend a lot of time on story, but with this one, it's not your typical run-of-the-mill slasher in that aspect. You have like a lot of really good moments with characters. You have a lot of really good like tense scenes, you know, for example, the scene where Helen's in her house and the killer's stalking her, all that stuff. Like, that's all really good stuff that I feel like really sets this film apart. Plus the chase scene is just, God, next to none, one of the best chase scenes ever in a horror film. So
I don't understand. I don't see what you guys are seeing in this. Like, is it just because
I don't know if I think it's the best, but I liked it. I think
I don't even,
because she got away believably, you know, and she's screaming. I don't know. Because I wanted her to get away.
Screaming. Yeah.
I was kind of invested in it and I wanted her to get away. And it started with that, you know, being in the back of the truck. Sorry, in the back of the police car, you know, and then it was long. I mean, she's in the store and then she's going up. There's just a lot of stuff going on, I think.
Yeah, and it's not like your typical, like, yes, it's a typical horror scene, like a horror chase scene in a movie, but like the way they do it, it's so different from any other like horror chase scene that I've ever seen. And she's a smart character. Like, you see a lot of chase scenes where these characters, like in Prom Night, for example, Lisa's scene, the black girl that gets chased through like the mezzanine level, like she's making so many stupid decisions. Helen is doing everything right and she still ends up getting killed. Well, except for the end. She does everything right up till the end, and then she's stupid. But I love that how the whole scene plays out so differently than any other chase scene that I've ever seen. So for me, I feel like that's why it stands out. But
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's making some smart decisions of like,
I could see that. Yeah. Nothing really stupid happens until the end. But I did think, you're going to crank that elevator up to the second floor slower than he can walk up to it. Like, where are you going to go?
Yeah.
I was like, I will say the one moment in this that I feel like I did like is how she had to jump out of that window and like landed in like debris. So she was able to survive. I liked that, but what I really wanted, and this might be, again, like based on my later experience of watching movies, I wanted her to be injured somehow. Like I was like, okay, she gets like a nail through the leg or something, like,
yeah,
because it's like, okay, you're gonna fall in there and you're just cool. So, like that was like,
well, she did limp.
She does have a limp, yeah.
Yeah, I just want to see more blood, I guess. That's my, yes. I'm like, give me some fucking gore because I like it. Because it felt too clean to me. It was like, she like jumps out, she's like, boom, hits it. Oh, whatever, I'm still alive.
Like you would think her hands would be cut up from like falling out of a cop car and landing on all that broken glass. You think that
exactly.
her knees would definitely be fucking scuffed up. Like, but she's like just clean and pristine. Even her dress is still like
looks good.
Perfectly polished. Her hair, like her hair is kind of messy, but like other than that, she looks beautiful in this scene.
And my daughter was like, I love her dress.
Yes. I was thinking, man, this is one of those like 90s trends that's come back around that people are doing again, is this like silk dress thing. Anyway.
Yeah.
I think there were a few moments like that. They were just too clean. It was like, I wanted something else to happen. Like sometimes shit just doesn't go the way that you expect it to go, right? Like you're going to try to jump out of this window. You're probably going to land on something that's going to hurt you. And I can't remember any other examples off the top of my head, but I feel like there was a few moments like as I was watching where I was like, that wouldn't really go that way. Like I wish that something would happen to impede that plan or something. Oh, the other one was the flare gun. This is like the opposite end of the spectrum because it went the way that the killer wanted, but she like pulls out this flare gun and he like, I don't know, moves the boat, and so it just like falls out of her hand out of the boat. I laughed. I was like, I wish something messy. I just wish something messy would have happened. I wish she would have accidentally discharged it into the side of the boat or something. You know, like I just was like, I don't know. It like a lot of moments like that just felt too like cut and dry. I just wanted to see more.
Or maybe on the side of his face, you know, that it wasn't wasn't like critical, but you get some gore there, not just like, I have it. Oh shit.
I was like, what's the point? Okay. don't even
have it,
let her grab
my
it.
boobs look amazing.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, Jennifer Love Hewitt does have a good set. I'm not going to lie. And this is coming from a gay man. So, I mean.
I wasn't going to mention this, but apparently she was voted best boobs. Number 8 best boobs of, I don't know, all of boobdom. I don't know what the fucking list was.
You know, but I was like, I remember that back then. There was a lot of talk about her. About boobs. Yeah, about her boobs. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, they even say it in Scary Movie, like the movie that made fun of Scream, and I know what we did last summer. There, I think Anna Faris's character, she says a line along the lines of, maybe I'll be cast as Jennifer Love, huge tits, or something like that. She says something,
That's funny.
You know what, with her outfit, that was something too that I do wish that she was a little bit more of a badass, because you know how they had her like she was like the goody two shoes, the smart girl, and then she was very obviously depressed and all pale and gray and all of that. And then as it went on, you notice she was wearing more kind of like clothes that were, I don't know, more covered. And then she started to like show more cleavage and her stomach, and she started to show like more of like yours, not that you have to show your cleavage to be a badass, but more of this like, I'm sweaty, I'm dirty, I'm like, I'm peeling off, I'm ready to fight. But she didn't show up fully as that.
It's like emerging, right? Like
it wasn't as developed, is what I was saying. Like I wanted her to show up as like this real badass, but she didn't. So
yeah. It's kind of a letdown. And I think that's another reason why that kind of contributes to my score a little bit, is just because I feel like, I don't know, as a final girl, she does not do it for me at all. Like, if I'm more invested in a side character of Helen, if I'm more invested in her surviving and I don't give a fuck what happens to Julie or Ray or anybody else in this film, that's an issue. Like, you're centering this whole film around Jennifer Love Hewitt's character, and you're supposed to be able to like root for her at the end. I don't root for her. I've seen this movie a million times and I still never root for her character. I'm always like, why did she have to survive? Like, and like I said, it's nothing against Jennifer Love Hewitt. I think she did a great job. Like, her acting is like really good in this film. And I like the moral high ground that her character takes at the beginning.
Me too.
But it's just there's no transition whatsoever with her character at all. It's the same throughout the entire movie, and it just gets to a point where it's just very mundane. And I'm just like, okay, I'm kind of tired of seeing you on my screen. I want to just die already.
Give me some Helen.
Just like Kristen Stewart. That was a great comment because it immediately popped in my head, and I'm like, oh yeah. I just want to say one thing before Tawny gives her score. But why on earth wouldn't you have the back door locked if you're at a store in the middle of the night and you have the front door locked? I didn't even say anything, and my daughter's like, why wouldn't that back door be locked already? That doesn't even make sense. But anyways,
definitely a safety concern. Definitely.
Yeah, for sure.
You like how I made you go next with your score?
I like
Tawny
how you
always goes last.
I like how you voluntold me.
Voluntold. You don't have to. I can go if you want me to.
No, I'll go.
Okay.
We are switching things up today.
I am prepared for this. So I'm going to give this a 2.75. I know. I'm sorry.
Damn. That's okay.
Which is 0.25 higher than what I gave Insidious. And that's kind of where I was like, do I like this as much as my 3s? No. But I didn't hate it. And I think I disliked Insidious more for like, I don't know.
That's surprising.
More specific reasons, I guess. But I just can't, I gotta be honest, I felt really bored through most of this movie. I felt like for the first 25%, I was down. And then it was like just boring. And I think it's just because my own not dislike of slashers, and it became a slasher in the back part of the movie. And like you said, I really don't care about any of these characters. I kind of like Helen's character because she has the most of an arc of everybody. But I still am not like, I don't know. I just couldn't, it just was, I don't know. I didn't really have like a super fun time watching it. Like you said, Felicia, like some of those things bugged you, but you still had a fun time. I felt like it wasn't enough for me to super enjoy watching it, I guess. So it was nostalgic and I felt like there were good moments, but it just was like, I don't know, not for me, I guess. So I'm sorry.
Makes sense. That's okay. That was a little hard on my heart, but it's okay.
I'm sorry.
It's probably a little hard on Josh's heart too, because I know how much Josh loves this movie as well.
Oh no, sorry, Josh.
Or maybe it isn't. It has to be. I think it's Josh. It's either Josh or Jess. It's one of those two, but I'm pretty sure Josh loves this movie too. But okay. I don't know.
That would make sense since he's such a fan of Scream, because I feel like this definitely has Scream vibes.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so it's my turn.
Yeah.
So, okay. I gave this movie a 2.95, but here's the thing.
Okay.
Because it sounds it's really hard because there was a couple 3s that I did enjoy more. So it's what's hard is I don't feel like it's a bad score because there were some 3s that just that notch. I just liked them more or enjoyed them more, but I still enjoyed this. And I did like it more than other movies that I watched and that have lower scores. Just the same as what Tawny said. That's what's hard is whenever we're doing these scores, I go back and I look at all of my 3s and my 3.5s. And I was kind of going back and forth. If I could be honest, I gave Cabin in the Woods. So I was going to give this one a 3 as well, because I was like, oh, okay. Yeah. I liked it the same. Oh gosh, maybe I shouldn't have gone into this because people are going to hate me for this, but I gave Predator 2018 a 3.
I also gave that a 3.
I really liked that movie. Well, I cracked up. There's lots of same things that were silly, but I just was cracking up and I enjoyed it just that much more. So 2.95, but I enjoyed it. So it wasn't like I had all this stuff to say about it that I hated this movie.
Yeah. Well, and I can agree with both of you. I agree with Tawny's point that I feel like there are some points in this film where it could have been like trim the fat a little bit or just cut this scene out completely. I agree with that. I feel like there's definitely a lull, like from the 30-minute to like the 45 an hour mark. There's kind of just like a little bit of a lull there where it's like not a lot happens. And it's just kind of like, okay, waiting for something to happen here that's not happening. So when is it going to happen? So I get that.
I hope you still want to be on our show. So here's the thing.
No, I don't. Actually, this is going to be the last time I associate myself with two chicks in a horror flick. I'm just kidding.
It's like weird because the scores that we gave seem so low. Or I can speak for myself. The score seems low, right? But I enjoyed the conversation. I enjoyed the movie. Yeah. It wasn't like when Tawny made me watch Little Monsters, And I'm just kidding, Tawny, or Pet Sematary 2, right? And I the really remake. Did not the remake. Yeah, I did really not enjoy it. I did enjoy it, and I enjoyed watching it. And
I also didn't hate it. Yeah. Like there's movies that I watch that I hate, and I'm like mad about, and I'm like, I didn't have that experience. But
why did you waste my life with this movie?
Yeah. So
No, of course I still want to come onto your guys' show.
Okay, good.
I feel like this is a fun movie for my teens have been balls deep into horror movies, but like if you have a teenager that you want to introduce into horror, like Josh was talking about on his their Gremlins episode, that Gremlins is a good if you want to introduce your young kids into horror, Gremlins is a good movie. I feel like this would be a good introducing your teens into horror.
For sure.
I agree with that. Yeah.
And I think that was my experience too, and that's probably why it's nostalgic.
I do wish that I had watched it when I was younger, because I think I would like it more and I'd rate it higher because of the nostalgia, right? I just think I'm missing that piece.
I was only like, how old was I when this movie came out? Like I was 5 or 6 when this movie came out, so I was a baby. So I was definitely not old enough to watch this movie when it first came out, but I still remember
20. I was like 19 or 20. I was almost old enough to drink when this movie came out.
Oh my gosh.
I'd been watching horror movies for a long time.
Already a veteran.
Already. I started watching horror movies at the age of 4, because my parents watched them. They were like, yeah, she's in the room. It's cool.
I love it.
I think I told you this, Felicia, but I've talked about this before. I have the first, I think, horror movie I ever saw was Child's Play, and it's a fucking bootleg VHS recorded off the TV. My mom found it. She found the actual VHS like a couple weeks ago, sent me a picture, and I keep meaning to send it so that we can put it on our Instagram. It's like,
she needs to save that, and you need to put it in like a shadow box situation.
She's gonna save it for sure. Yeah. So it's like also just started real early on the horror movies.
That's so cool.
Okay,
so what's our next movie? Do you remember?
Yes, I do. The next movie we're watching is Parasite. So, remember, I chose that one because I've been wanting to see it real bad. And that's also one my husband wants to see. So I get a partner in watching this scary movies. It's usually just me alone in a dark room.
Cool.
You're in for a treat because that movie is... Where do I even start?
It's so meaty.
It is a beautiful movie.
Yeah.
So good.
There will be a lot to talk about, I'm sure.
Nice.
But okay, so Michael, why don't you plug your podcasts again? Tell people where to find you.
Okay. So I have 2 podcasts. So the first one is the We Love Horror podcast, which is a weekly podcast where I just have a different guest on every week and we talk about various horror topics. This month I'm doing the winter and July theme. So I'm just doing winter themed horror films all month long during July. And then I'll get back to my normal, like, scheduled episodes where I just do random horror films. And you can find me on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, anywhere you stream your podcasts. I also have, as I said at the beginning of the episode, I have merch out. I have a Patreon. So if you're interested in becoming a patron, you can find the link in my bio on Instagram. And then my other podcast that I do with Josh from Horror Movie Crew is called Another Horror Pod. And that's a bi-monthly podcast where we talk about, where we do like top 5 lists or, stuff like that. bi-monthly, is that the right term?
I was going to ask.
Twice a month?
Bi-weekly?
Is it twice a month?
Oh, bi-weekly.
Bi-weekly, that's what I meant. Sorry. Bi-weekly.
I was like, oh, you only do it every other month.
I know, I'm confusing your listeners now. It's a bi-weekly podcast where me and Josh just shoot the shit about, we do lists, we do rankings, stuff like that. So kind of like strays away from the typical talk about just one specific movie. We kind of just rank our favorite films, stuff like that. So if you're interested in listening to that, we're streaming everywhere you can stream your podcast as well. So yeah, thank you guys for letting me come on. I had so much fun, as I always do. So
yeah,
thank you. We love having you. We love you. So
I love you guys too. And then I have you guys on very, very soon. So
yes. Yeah. So be on the lookout for that. This was a really good discussion. I do want to talk about the second one. I think it would be fun to come back and watch the second one and talk about it at some point whenever we can.
Yeah.
Thank you, Michael. It was awesome. And you can find us. I would say Instagram is our hub too. 2 Chicks and a Horror Flick. And the link in our bio as well will bring you everywhere in the universe we exist. But you can find us on every single social media platform at 2 Chicks and a Horror Flick, except Twitter is at 2ChicksHF. And what else, Tawny?
You can support the show by rating and giving us a review on whatever platform you're on. But Apple Podcasts helps us the most, I think, to get pushed up the listings when people search for us and stuff. And you can also support the show with our Patreon. We have one as well. And we also have a Discord server that you can go and talk all things horror. So join us over there.
Very nice.
Okay. So thanks again, Michael, for being here. This was a great discussion.
Thanks
enjoyed
for having me.
You. You're the best. And we'll see you guys next week. So have a good night or rest of your day since it's daytime and no nightmares.